wasn't born into a deaf family. I lived in the middle of nowhere. There weren't any ASL classes at school. There wasn't any YouTube. So how did I learn ASL? Well, I started teaching myself at age 9 with nothing but a dictionary. This exact dictionary. Since then, I've met deaf in 25 countries. I've started a nonprofit organization. I've founded InterSign University. I've learned multiple sign languages, and I'm certified as an interpreter. But it has taken me a lifetime, 28 years of struggle, just trying to learn. And
ain't nobody got time for that.
Especially if you want to work as an interpreter. So what should you do? I'll break this video up into 4 steps that if you follow will make you a great signer.
Semi-pro.
So the first step is fingerspelling. Not even close. I'll explain why later. Let's try again. So the first real step is to identify your purpose. What is the meaningful reason behind you learning ASL? So when I ask ASL students, why are you learning sign? They'll often respond, I don't know, it's fun, or it's cool, I guess. Let me tell you the brutal, honest truth. Learning a language is hard, so you're never going to stick with learning ASL if you don't have a strong underlying reason to keep you going, a good purpose, and a clear end goal. You can always change your end goal later, but for now, you need to always retain that reason why you're learning. So for example, when I was 9, I wanted to read the entire New Testament in ASL, meaning I wanted to sign each word. So I started by opening up to Matthew chapter 1 and fingerspelling all of the names. And if you know Matthew, then you know there are a ton of names. And then I would look up every single word in the dictionary and I would teach myself how to sign them. So word by word, I built this vocabulary, and it worked for me because I didn't want to have to look up every word every time. So it incentivized me to memorize the signs out of sheer laziness, which I think is a pretty good idea for a 9-year-old. When I was 12, my purpose was that I prayed every night that a deaf person would move into my area. Please, please send someone deaf here. Keep in mind, my town was tiny. But when I was age 16, a deaf girl moved into my area. Yep, it actually happened. All those prayers worked. So she moved in, and I wanted her to feel comfortable and welcome at our church, of course. So the two of us were just attached at the hip from then on out. We went to every church activity together. We went to girls' camp together. When I was 24, it came full circle when I was given a scholarship to circumnavigate the world by ship through the Semester at Sea program. And every time I would arrive in a country by boat or plane or train, I would, quote unquote, randomly meet a deaf person. And I met deaf in 12 countries, and then I set up a nonprofit organization called The Deaf Dream, where we award scholarships to deaf students in developing nations, I think in 7 countries so far, so they can go to university and become the first deaf students to attend university in their countries. So when I look back on ages 9, 12, 16, 24, they all had one thing in common. I always had a clear purpose to learn. It wasn't just a cool or fun language for me. So take a second and imagine your why. For example, who are you learning ASL for? Maybe your parents-in-law are deaf. That's a good reason to learn. Maybe you want to become a teacher. You feel that call. That's a good reason. Maybe you want to be able to converse with your deaf clients at work. Good reason. There are many different whys to learn. So what does success look like to you? So instead of a broad general reason, let's try focusing on a specific goal. For example, I want to have a 2-minute conversation with my deaf neighbor for just 2 minutes. So be specific. Describe what your why looks like and write it down. I have found that if a student forgets or doesn't have a why, their energy and motivation to learn plummets. So keep your why in the forefront of your mind. So that's the first step. Find your why, your purpose. So the second step is how to learn ASL. And I get it, starting to learn a new language is a challenge. And there are a ton of ASL platforms to learn with. So how do you know which one? Well, the most important thing is to just pick one and start, because honestly, will you be able to truly learn how to sign via an app? No, it's just not possible. There are a ton of YouTube tutorials here that you can watch, and kudos for doing that. But I'm going to be blunt. Ultimately, you're going to have to chat with deaf people to learn. Real live deaf people. Gasp. So how do you do that? Well, going to deaf events or deaf church is overwhelming. Start hyperventilating now. You probably don't know where to begin. So remember 28 years ago when I struggled with my paperback dictionary? When I look back now, if InterSign University had been a thing, holy cow, I would have learned so much faster. Why? Because you can chat with deaf from day one. So my years of trial and error would have been reduced from years to months. So we've talked about your why, and now we've talked about how and where you should start learning. So step number 4 is what, as in what exactly should I learn? What should you focus your studies on? Your first focus should be having a basic conversation. So here in the United States, typically the first thing you learn in a language class is grammar. The teacher just really emphasizes grammar. Why? Well, it's easy to test. Your teacher can easily say, oh, that was right, and that was wrong. But that is the worst possible approach to language learning, because now your brain is in perfectionist mode and you think, whew, I have to know grammar perfectly before I can talk with someone. No, that's wrong. No wonder so many people here in the United States feel overwhelmed or it's too challenging to learn a new language. In Europe, it's completely different. They expect you to converse in a new language from day one. Why? Because Europe is made up of many countries and their languages interact every day. So from the very beginning, you expect to talk with someone in that new language. Conversation isn't postponed until later. So that approach, Europe's method, I want you to apply to learning ASL. Don't worry about grammar. If you watch deaf content, if you get involved in the deaf community, you'll pick it up with time. You can set that aside for now and not worry about it. For now, I want you to focus on what you need to know to have a simple, basic conversation. And honestly, grammar in the deaf world is quite flexible. Now, they're not going to tell you this in ASL class probably, but grammar is inconsistent and it depends on who you're chatting with. And this is because every deaf person's language background is different. So if you're chatting with a deaf person who grew up in a deaf family, they might have pure ASL grammar. Might. But if you meet someone deaf who grew up in a hearing family, signing C, so signed exact English, then their sign will follow English grammar rules to a degree. So it's rarely purely one or the other. For example, this sentence in C, I was scared. Pure ASL, I scared I. Signed English, I entered a store. Classroom ASL, store I entered. Another ASL way, I entered where? A store. So there's lots of different ways to sign. And just so you know, I think it's easy to become conversational in ASL, but it's really hard to become fluent. So I recommend imagining what a simple conversation would look like. What questions will you get asked? How will you respond? And that's called question-based language learning. And if someone asks you a question, practice how you would respond. Not in a grammar perfect way, not at all. Just how would you reply? Would you start with yes, no, maybe, true biz, can, can't, etc. Focus number 2 is your passion topic. Honestly, traditional vocab lists just don't work. When you go into a language class to learn Spanish or ASL or something, you sit down and your teacher will probably pass out this vocab list, and you'll notice that one of the words is library. And that's fine to learn library or biblioteca in Spanish, but how often do you discuss libraries in any given day? Almost never, right? I even enjoy books, but I rarely find myself conversing about libraries. So why is that one of the first words you often learn on day one of Spanish class? I honestly have no idea. I think it's not right, personally. So start your own vocabulary list with words that relate to your passion topic, something that you really enjoy talking about. For example, say you like talking about pirates or Harry Potter or books or engineering or languages or old movies. Start there. So in my case, when I travel and I'm learning a new sign language, I first start learning words that I can use to discuss deaf education or to chat about my religious beliefs, my faith. So I practice how to talk about those topics. Learn vocab related to your experiences, to the topics you are passionate about. This approach is going to help you feel way more comfortable chatting with someone. It's going to help you gain momentum and not just memorize this long list of random vocab words. Remember, your first priority right now is conversation, not recitation. Focus number 3, your first deaf conversation. So I cannot recommend enough. Have your first deaf conversation now. Don't delay it. Too often I see ASL students, after learning for 2 years, they try to meet a deaf person, but are just terrified. Because for 2 years now, you've been building this massive mental wall that's now entrenched, and it feels completely overwhelming to try and climb over. Have your first deaf conversation now, because trying to learn ASL without deaf is like trying to run when you don't even know how to walk yet. If you want to avoid future embarrassment, just start now. Embrace your beginner status. Don't think, oh, I'll just wait until later. Or later I'll know enough. Well, later means you'll be even more scared. You'll be even more awkward. You'll think you need to be fluent before you can have a conversation. So if you start now, it's easier to just get those mistakes done early. They're not expecting you to be fluent. Cherish this time. You're lucky. Focus number 4, strategically learn the elements of ASL. So number 4 is to set up a structured strategy, a plan to learn ASL. Start with the easiest concepts to learn and continue until the hardest concepts. So I've made a free list of all the elements of ASL, and it's just this free checklist that I dropped in the link below. So let's just start with the easiest of the 8 elements. First, pronouns and indexing. For example, you, me, we, they, your, my, etc. Second, directional verbs. So you give to me, I give to you, I give to her, she gives to you, we give to each other. That. So third are what are called time markers. For example, yesterday, today, tomorrow, finished as in the past, a long time ago, in the future. So as an example, yesterday I went into the store. I looked around, bought way too much, brought it all home, realized it was way too expensive. Don't tell my spouse. So you set up this time marker at the beginning. Element number 4 is role shifts. So let's say I'm telling you a story about a conversation with my friend. Hey, what's up? Oh, I'm just ready to blow. My teacher gave us a boatload of homework. Ooh, I'm so sorry. So you see how the role shifts? Number 5, number systems. English has 2 systems, cardinal and ordinal. ASL, on the other hand, has many, many number systems. 6th, grammar. Yes, it is important to learn grammar, but later. 7th are classifiers. Now, CL, classifiers, they're used to describe, to show movement, to show relationships via a sophisticated system of gestures. For example, describing someone walking, you could use this hand shape. Or you can use this hand shape to show their head looking around. Or these hand shapes to show their feet. Or this hand shape to show their legs, etc. 8th, fingerspelling. Okay, so maybe you don't have to learn fingerspelling last, but hold it for later. If you live here in the USA, yes, you're going to have to learn fingerspelling. It's important, but later. And it's funny, I've noticed that new ASL students think that if someone fingerspells fast, they are a pro signer. But with time, they realize that fingerspelling is actually just English with hands. So it's not really pure sign language, you could say. And then eventually they realize that the best signers just don't rely on fingerspelling. They sign visually with intricate gestures, like deaf poetry. Have you seen that before? Using expressions, classifier, shape, movement to show this beauty. Now that is a great signer. But I get it. It's way more fun to watch fast fingerspellers. So funny and so true, right? So how do you communicate without fingerspelling? I recommend acting out a concept, describing a concept, gesturing. So if you don't know the sign for tea, for example, you could act out holding a cup, lifting the tea packet and dipping it into the hot water, stirring in some cream, some milk, and then drinking it. And then you can sign, "What's that?" And they'll reply, "Oh, that's tea." "Oh, tea? Duh, that makes sense." So you act it out, and you'll find that often the sign looks very similar to your gesture. I feel really strongly that the worst thing ASL students can learn at the beginning is fingerspelling. Why? Because then they overly rely on fingerspelling. "Oh, I don't know this sign. I'll just fingerspell. Oh, I don't know that sign. I'll just fingerspell." And that becomes an entrenchable habit, your brain's default. It's hard enough to break free from English, so this means that your brain remains stuck in English. And you'll constantly think, how do I translate that into ASL? Rather than thinking visually and gesturally. Your brain is struggling to transition to thinking into ASL, especially if it has to keep coming back to English fingerspelling over and over again. It's hard for it to switch into a full visual gestural language. So yes, it's important to learn fingerspelling here in the United States. I get it. But first, let's boost your visual and gestural skills and get those ingrained in your mind. Then you can practice fingerspelling. Does that make sense? And I promise that if you hold off fingerspelling until later, you will become a far better signer and interpreter. I can promise that. If you feel like this video has helped you, I recommend this video where I teach why fingerspelling is actually English and how to gesture instead of fingerspell. Also, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you. And if you're feeling super motivated now to meet your first deaf person, you can with InterSign University, link below.